Welcome to Book Nibbles, Big Ideas, Small Bites. Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within is both a manifesto and a roadmap for reclaiming control of one's life, emotions, habits, and destiny. The central theme of the book is that each of us has within us a giant, an incredible reservoir of power, passion, and potential that often lies dormant. Most people drift through life reacting rather than shaping, driven by old patterns, emotions, or beliefs that were never consciously chosen. Robbins makes a bold claim early on. The quality of your life is not determined by external conditions, but by the decisions you make and the meanings you attach to events. Everything changes the moment you take ownership of those decisions and choose deliberately rather than habitually. Robbins begins by describing his own story. He wasn't born wealthy or influential. Far from it. He tells of his struggles, growing up in a chaotic household with financial scarcity, emotional volatility, and very little certainty. He worked as a janitor making $40 a week, barely able to support himself, let alone dream big. Yet through relentless curiosity and a willingness to model successful people, he discovered strategies that allowed him to rise from poverty to becoming one of the most sought-after coaches, speakers, and strategists in the world. His story illustrates the book's promise. Transformation doesn't come from luck or circumstances, but from awakening the power within through decisions and consistent action. One of the first big ideas he presents is the principle that decisions shape destiny. People often believe their life is governed by their conditions, where they were born, their family, the economy, or luck. Robbins flips that narrative. The moment of decision is the moment your life changes. He gives the example of how a single decision to quit smoking, to end a toxic relationship, to start exercising, or to pursue a career can alter the trajectory of decades to come. Think of someone who decides to stop drinking after years of self-destruction. That one decision can ripple into health, better relationships, improved career performance, and generational change for their family. Robbins emphasizes that indecision is itself a decision, a choice to let external forces dictate your path. He encourages the reader to take command by recognizing that, no matter what, we can decide what to focus on, what meaning to give to things, and what actions to take. To illustrate this, he tells stories of people who faced adversity but made empowering decisions. There's the story of Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, who in the midst of unspeakable suffering realized the last of human freedoms was the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Frankl decided to give meaning to his suffering, imagining he would survive to help others find hope. That decision gave him strength and purpose. Robbins uses this to remind readers, you don't control everything that happens to you, but you always control the meaning you attach to it, and that meaning dictates your emotions and actions. The next critical idea he develops is that emotions are the force that drives all behavior. People don't act based on logic alone, they act to avoid pain or gain pleasure. In fact, he argues that nearly everything we do is an attempt to avoid pain or to seek pleasure. This pain-pleasure principle explains why people develop habits, stay in relationships, or pursue careers even when they don't consciously want to. Someone who smokes may logically know it's harmful, but they associate smoking with relief, relaxation, or social connection. Unless they learn to associate smoking with more pain than pleasure, they will continue the habit. Robbins illustrates this with countless examples, from overeating to procrastination. The trick, he says, is to condition your nervous system so that destructive behaviors are linked with massive pain and empowering behaviors are linked with massive pleasure. He describes how this played out in his own life when he decided to stop binge eating late at night. Instead of seeing it as a comforting ritual, he deliberately imagined the long-term consequences. Gaining unhealthy weight, losing energy, shortening his lifespan, and setting a bad example for his family. He stacked so much pain to the habit that it no longer appealed. Then he linked pleasure to healthier alternatives, like waking up feeling energized or being proud of his discipline. Robbins insists anyone can do this with any habit. The nervous system is wired to move toward pleasure and away from pain, so if you shift those associations, change becomes inevitable. This leads into one of the most powerful tools he shares: neuroassociative conditioning. Instead of relying on willpower alone, which often fails, Robbins explains that lasting change comes from rewiring the associations in your mind. If you make undesirable behaviors emotionally painful and desirable behaviors emotionally rewarding, you create automatic motivation. For example, imagine someone who wants to exercise but hates the gym. If they focus on the dread of sweating, the boredom of running, and the discomfort of lifting weights, they will avoid it. But if they instead create excitement by blasting energizing music, working out with a fun partner, and celebrating small victories, they start to link pleasure to the activity. Over time, it becomes addictive. Robbins demonstrates how this works with real stories of his seminar attendees. One man who had struggled to quit smoking for decades finally succeeded after an exercise in which he deeply imagined himself gasping for breath in a hospital bed, unable to play with his children. The pain was so vivid that cigarettes became repulsive. At the same time, he envisioned the joy of running with his kids, being healthy, and living long enough to see them grow. The combined leverage of pain and pleasure flipped the switch. Robbins insists this method can be applied to procrastination, unhealthy eating, overspending, poor communication, anything that limits us. The book also dives deep into beliefs and the power they hold. Robbins calls beliefs the compass and maps that guide us in life. They determine what we consider possible or impossible, what we attempt or avoid. He says that beliefs are nothing more than feelings of certainty about something, and they can be changed. Many people are trapped not by their conditions but by disempowering beliefs. For example, someone may believe, "I'm not good with money," which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Another might believe, "All relationships eventually fail," leading them to sabotage connections. These beliefs are not facts. They are interpretations, often formed years ago and never questioned. Robbins tells the story of a woman who had grown up being told she was unattractive. She carried that belief into adulthood, sabotaging relationships and living with low self-esteem. Through exercises, she realized this was not an absolute truth but merely a belief based on past comments. By challenging it, finding counterexamples, and conditioning new empowering beliefs, she completely shifted her life. Robbins shows readers how to do the same. Identify limiting beliefs, question their validity, replace them with empowering ones, and reinforce them through consistent action. Language, too, plays a critical role. The words we use shape our emotional state. Robbins argues that people often live in a limited emotional vocabulary that traps them in negative states. For instance, saying, "I'm devastated," creates a far stronger emotional hit than saying, "I'm a bit disappointed." By consciously choosing words that lessen pain or amplify empowerment, you can shift your feelings instantly. Robbins calls this transformational vocabulary. He tells of a client who constantly said he was furious with his employees. Just by changing that to, "I'm a little peeved," his emotional intensity dropped, allowing him to handle situations with more patience. On the flip side, you can also enhance joy by using richer language. Instead of "I'm fine," say, "I feel magnificent." Language reframes experience. Another dimension Robbins explores is values, the hierarchy of what we deem most important in life. He explains that values are the emotional states we desire most, like love, success, freedom, security, adventure, or growth. Each person has a unique hierarchy, and this hierarchy explains why people make different choices. For example, if security is someone's top value, they may choose a stable job over pursuing a risky passion. If adventure is top, they might quit that same job to travel the world. Conflicts often arise when people have conflicting values, like wanting both security and variety at the same time. Robbins emphasizes that clarity of values is essential. Without it, people live in conflict and confusion, pulled in opposite directions. He guides readers to not only identify their top values but also examine whether their current hierarchy serves their best life. Someone who values comfort above growth may never push themselves to fulfill their potential. Robbins encourages designing a values hierarchy that aligns with the life you truly want. He gives the example of a businessman who placed success above family, leading to broken relationships. By reshaping his hierarchy to place love and connection higher, his life transformed. This is a reminder that fulfillment comes not from achieving arbitrary goals but from living in alignment with your true values. Rules are another hidden driver. Everyone has rules, personal criteria for when they feel happy, successful, or loved. For instance, one person may only feel loved if someone says, "I love you" daily, while another feels loved simply by a smile. If your rules are rigid, difficult, or based on others' behavior, you set yourself up for misery. Robbins calls this the rules of pain and pleasure. A woman who can only feel successful when everyone likes her is destined for frustration because it's impossible to control everyone's opinion. Robbins suggests designing empowering rules that make it easy to feel good and difficult to feel bad. Imagine if your rule for feeling successful was simply, "Whenever I learn something, I'm successful." That person would feel successful constantly and have momentum. Robbins also expands into the realm of identity. He argues that the strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with one's identity. If you see yourself as a smoker, quitting is nearly impossible because it contradicts who you think you are. But if you shift your identity to, I am a healthy person, your behaviors naturally align. Identity is like the thermostat of life. Even if you achieve success, if your internal thermostat is set low, you'll sabotage yourself to return to your comfort zone. Raise your identity, and your life rises with it. Throughout the book, Robbins emphasizes the importance of rituals. Small daily actions that shape long-term destiny. Success doesn't come from occasional massive action alone, but from consistent rituals. He uses the metaphor of planting seeds. Each action is a seed, and over time, rituals bear fruit. For example, brushing your teeth is a ritual that prevents decay. Similarly, daily exercise, journaling, affirmations, or gratitude practices compound into transformation. Robbins himself describes rituals like power moves, affirmations, and visualization exercises he uses to prime his state each day. Another recurring theme is modeling, finding someone who has already achieved what you want and studying their strategies. Robbins insists that success leaves clues. If you want to be wealthy, study how wealthy people think, what decisions they make, how they invest, how they speak, how they handle risk. If you want a great relationship, find couples who have lasting love and learn their communication patterns. Robbins himself modeled successful speakers, business people, and leaders to accelerate his growth. This principle, he says, saves time and prevents reinventing the wheel. As the book progresses, Robbins shifts from personal psychology to broader life mastery. He emphasizes financial mastery, explaining that money is not the ultimate goal but a means to freedom and contribution. He stresses that financial security comes not from income alone but from managing your resources, making intelligent investments, and avoiding destructive patterns like overspending. He gives examples of people who earn millions but live paycheck to paycheck because they never mastered money psychology, versus ordinary earners who built wealth through consistent habits. Relationships are another domain he explores deeply. Robbins argues that the quality of your life is the quality of your relationships. Whether it's romantic, family, or professional, relationships thrive on communication, shared values, and giving more than you expect to receive. He emphasizes that relationships are not about 50-50 but about 100-0, giving fully without keeping score. He shares stories of couples who rekindled their marriages by focusing not on what they were getting but on what they could give. He insists that love is not a noun but a verb, an ongoing action. Toward the end, Robbins ties everything back to purpose. All the tools, changing beliefs, mastering emotions, setting empowering values, building rituals, are meaningless without a compelling purpose. Purpose is the ultimate fuel. He tells of people who found purpose in raising children, building businesses, serving communities, or creating art. Purpose is deeply personal, but it's what drives the giant within to awaken fully. Without purpose, people achieve goals and still feel empty. With purpose, even struggles feel meaningful. The book concludes with a call to action. Robbins challenges readers not to simply absorb ideas but to apply them immediately. Knowledge without action, he says, is worthless. He urges people to make a decision today, whether to change a habit, redefine a belief, create a new ritual, or commit to a purpose. That decision, reinforced consistently, is the spark that awakens the giant. He reminds us that life is happening now, not someday. The giant within is not a distant possibility but a present reality waiting to be unleashed by choice, focus, and action. He leaves readers with stories of transformation from people who attended his seminars. Addicts who turned their lives around, business leaders who built empires, couples who saved marriages. These stories are not just inspiration but proof that the principles work universally. Robbins insists that no matter your past, your current struggles, or your external conditions, you have the ability to reclaim your destiny by awakening your giant within. And that's it. Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. Thanks for listening to Book Nibbles. If you enjoyed this bite-sized book, don't forget to subscribe for more quick, insightful summaries. See you in the next nibble.